Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Definition, aka your friendly neighborhood spoiler man, and in this video we're breaking down everything you need to know about the big bad of the MCU. That is, Thanos. Since his introduction in the Avengers, the character's become one of the most fascinating villains ever put to film, and throughout this video we'll be going over everything you need to know about him. There will be some spoilers here, so if you aren't fully up to speed with the Infinity Saga, then I hope you get dusted, because we're going to be spoiling everything. If you're still here, thanks for sticking around. Now let's get into our breakdown of Thanos. Okay, so Thanos originally started as an idea in Jim Starlins' mind all the way back when he was studying psychology in college. Along with Drax the Destroyer, Starlin thought of the pair of comic book characters as entities that both dealt with anger issues, and after going to Marvel, he was asked to pen an issue of Iron Man. Starlin didn't believe that his career would last longer than a couple of weeks, and thus he threw his all into this entry and used it as an opportunity to drop them in. He pitched the idea of Thanos to Marvel, and though they liked him, they had some notes and pointers for the up-and-coming comic book creator. Thanos was originally a relatively normal-sized character that initially appeared on the same level as the man, but this changed over time. Starlin has gone back and forth over this, saying that his original idea was to have him more in line with a villain like Metron, but that Marvel talked him into taking Thanos in a new direction. Admiring what Jack Kirby had done with the New Gods, the heads at Marvel stated that if they were going to steal one of them, then they might as well rip off the best, and thus Thanos ended up being more in line with Darkseid than anyone else. First appearing in the Invincible Iron Man 55 all the way back in 1973, he quickly became a foe for the Metal Man, the original Captain Marvel, Avengers, and Silver Surfer. When Infinity War was about to be released, Marvel reprinted pretty much all of his appearances and even gave a helpful reading list of what to check out. I've actually read through the majority of these for my website, and though some of them are hit and miss, there are some genuine classics in there, such as the Silver Surfer appearances and of course Infinity Gauntlet. Now all of these stories kinda combine to create the version that we've come to know and love, depending on who you ask. The Marvel Cinematic Universe version of the character was born on Titan to A-Laws. Thanos possessed a deviant gene which radically changed his appearance, and though he was initially ostracized, due to his brilliant mind, he quickly rose up through the ranks of the society. Thanos very much wished to be both brilliant and deadly, and thus he built his body too, quickly becoming an almost godlike figure amongst the race. If this has piqued your interest, then I definitely recommend that you check out Thanos Rising, as it sort of tells his origin story in a really well fleshed out way. That kind of falls in line more with the source material, but in the MCU, Thanos loved his planet and he was very proud of their accomplishments. However, as with most civilizations, they eventually hit a point that ultimately led to their extinction. Thanos realized that overpopulation would completely decimate the species, and thus he suggested that half the population be culled to ensure that the other half could survive. The idea was thought to be far too drastic, and he was labelled as a madman for even suggesting it. Thanos was exiled from the planet, and he watched from afar as they slowly started to succumb to his prophecy. Thus, Thanos was the last of his race, and after learning the hard way, he decided that he wouldn't allow the rest of the universe to fall to the same fate. Using his intellect and power, he quickly built up an army and moved through space, wiping out half of the population on planets one by one. In his eyes, he was balancing the universe, and though he earned the reputation as being a warlord, he soon gained a vast amount of devout followers that believed him to be the most powerful being in the universe. Amongst these were the orphans that he collected from several of the races that he conquered, and along with Gamora and Nebula, he also picked up Ebony Maw, Corvus Glaive, Cull Obsidian, and Proxima Midnight, who went on to form the Black Order. Though Thanos on the surface seemingly treated his children like soldiers, when it came to Gamora, he actually genuinely cared for her, and over the years he gained a lot of respect for the character and even became affectionate towards her. Thanos used to force Gamora and Nebula to fight one another, and he would then amputate a certain aspect of the loser in order to make them stronger. Gamora never lost, and thus Nebula became mentally damaged and hateful of a sibling. Thanos seemingly favoured Gamora above all else, and even after she started to detest him, he still believed that she would one day fall back in line, and he saw her as an heir. Together, along with the other and Chitauri forces, they destroyed the ecosystem on several planets in order to balance them out, but it wasn't too long before Thanos realised that it would take too long for him to complete this task in his lifetime. Thus, he started to research a faster way to end half of all life in the universe, and this is when he discovered the Infinity Stones. These objects of immense power were scattered across the known universe, and if they were collected, they could accomplish his goal. Thus, he made it his life's mission to gather them. Now, the first stone that Thanos came across was the Mind Stone, and he placed this into a scepter which could be used to control the minds of those that were against him. He too learned of the Power Stone and sent Nebula and Gamora to retrieve it under Korath's command. Nebula fell into a trap during this, and Thanos, who detested failure, told Gamora that she was not allowed to rescue her under any circumstances. Nebula tore off her own arm to escape, and though the orb wasn't retrieved, Thanos allowed her to return. Disappointed in her abilities, Thanos sent Gamora to find the Soul Stone, and though she found a map detailing its location, she burned it and lied to the Titan, saying that the stone's location was unknown. It's at this time that Thanos made an allegiance with Ronan the Accuser, who carried out several massacres for the Titan. During one of these, he murdered Drax's entire family, which formed a vendetta between the two. After the Tesseract was awakened on Earth, Thanos recruited Loki to lead his Chitauri forces, and here they would try and gain the Tesseract. In exchange for handing it over, Thanos would give Loki rule over the entire planet. However, the Avengers fought back. They managed to beat Loki and also gain the scepter containing the Mind Stone, which Thanos had gifted him with for his mission. Hydra commandeered this from S.H.I.E.L.D. and started their research on it, whilst Thor took the Tesseract back to Asgard. Upon being defeated by the Earthlings, which had been labelled unruly wretches, Thanos stood up and smiled, realising that he'd finally found something that would challenge him. Thanos started to study the Avengers, most notably Tony Stark, who he viewed as a kindred spirit, someone that was cursed with knowledge. Thanos worked away in the shadows, sending his minions out to manipulate events in order to bring the stones together, but he was betrayed by Ronan, who, after locating the Power Stone, decided that he would use it to get revenge on Xandar. Ronan murdered the other, and Nebula joined him, before they were both defeated by the Guardians of the Galaxy. The orb was collected and given to the Nova Corps, which meant that Thanos had lost another stone. It's during this time that he got the Infinity Gauntlet constructed by the dwarves of Nidavellir, and stated that he would do the job of collecting the stones himself. Nebula snuck on board the Sanctuary too and tried to assassinate him, but was captured, which does play into Infinity War. It's at this point that Thanos learned of the location of all the stones, and he set out after them. He arrived on Xandar and infiltrated the Nova Corps HQ, which is where he found the orb. Thanos placed it into the Infinity Gauntlet, and he then made his position known, killing half of the Xandarians before heading out to get the Tesseract from the Asgardians that had become refugees on their way to Earth. With the Black Order, Thanos killed half of the population on board the ship, whilst the other half escaped to Earth, and he took the Space Stone from the Tesseract before killing Loki and beating Hulk and Thor almost to death. Here he gave a speech about how loss turns the legs to jelly and how destiny always catches up. This plays into the final few moments of his life, which we'll talk about at the end of the video, but it's a very important line to bear in mind. Thanos sent his Black Order out to retrieve the Time and Mind Stone, whilst he went after the Reality and Soul Stone. This is where we pretty much get all of the events of Infinity War play out, with Thanos collecting the stones one by one. He even sacrificed Gamora in order to get the Soul Stone, and he made it his mission to track them down no matter the cost. Nebula escaped during this time, and she faced down against Thanos on Titan, along with the Guardians and some of the Avengers. Thanos bested them and almost killed Tony Stark. However, the Titan spared his life in exchange for the Time Stone before heading to Earth to collect the Mind Stone. Here he easily defeated those that tried to stop him, and even brought the Vision back to life using the Time Stone in order to collect the gem. It's at this moment that Thor threw Stormbreaker at him, and though this could have been fatal, due to Thor wishing to boast, he did not go for the killing stroke, and thus Thanos managed to carry out the snap which wiped out half of all life in the universe. At this moment, all of time froze, except for Thanos, who was transported to the Soul World without the wound in his chest or the Infinity Gauntlet. In this seemingly endless void, he approached a young Gamora who had been waiting for him. When asked what the mission had cost, he stated everything, and you truly got the feeling that it may have all been for nothing. Thanos to me is very much an example of why you should be careful what you wish for, as he lost the only person that he cared about in order to carry out something that would eventually be undone. Still, he didn't have time to mourn, and he returned to the real world mere seconds after he'd carried out the snap. With the Time Stone he healed his chest, and used the Space Stone to escape to his garden, which is where he watched the sun set on what he thought was a grateful universe. The reality was completely different, and the character was far away from the screams of pain that echoed across the universe as life was snuffed out for seemingly no reason. The universe entered a phase of anger and mourning, and Thanos settled on his farm, living a rather simple life for 3 weeks. Thanos clearly started to second guess whether what he'd done was the right thing or not, and to avoid the temptation of bringing those he'd sentenced to the Abyss back, he destroyed the Infinity Stones by using their own energies against them. This added further damage to his body, and he spent his remaining few days severely wounded and limping around his home. It's at this point that he was ambushed by the Avengers, who tracked the character through his use of the Infinity Stones and Nebula's knowledge of the Garden. They cut off his arm and then beheaded him, ending the character's life. However, it wouldn't be the last time that we saw him, and after the Avengers travel back in time to get the Infinity Stones, an alternate version of Thanos from 2014 followed the group back through the quantum realm, and here he sent Nebula to get the Iron Gauntlet. In the wreckage of Avengers HQ, he fought Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America, beating the three and leaving most of them severely wounded. The Avengers, however, had managed to reverse the snap, and joined by the heroes of the universe, the Resistance were able to defeat Thanos. Now, I love this younger version of Thanos, as we truly see the character for what he is. It's clear that deep down he's a sadistic murderer, and after seeing that his plan failed through knowing the future, he realizes that, rather than deciding not to do it, he must instead wipe out all life in the universe. This is because he knew that the survivors of the snap would always remember what they'd lost and focus on that instead of what they gained, which would lead to them living in despair. Thus, all life had to be reduced to a single atom and reconstructed, grateful of what they had rather than what they didn't. Thanos managed to retrieve the gauntlet, however, due to the Stark tech now embedded in it, Tony was able to take the stones and carry out his own snap, which wiped out all of his forces. Thanos accepted his defeat with dignity, and we watched as the loss turned his legs to jelly, and he sat down, became dust, much like the fate he wanted to force upon others. But will he be back? Well, a deleted scene for Avengers Endgame revealed that, like the rest of the survivors, if the snap which willed them out of existence is reversed, then he could return. On top of this, we have the What If series, which is set to feature a vocal appearance by Josh Brolin, so it does look like we might be seeing his grimmest looking head sooner rather than later, but who knows if it's going to be for good or just a cameo, which I hope it's for good because I love the guy. Now either way, that's everything you need to know about Thanos, and if you enjoyed this video then please drop a thumbs up, and make sure you check out a breakdown of the insane details in Avengers Endgame that you only notice after binge watching the MCU. It's one of our best Easter egg videos ever, so definitely check it out if you want something else to watch after this. Don't forget that every month on the 15th we give away free Blu-rays, and all you have to do to be in with a chance of winning the MCU Infinity Saga box set is leave a like and subscribe with notifications on. If you want to support the channel and get to see content like this early, then please consider clicking the join button below. You can also come chat to us on our Discord server in the description, or at Heavy Spoilers on Twitter. Anyway, that's everything in the video. Thank you for making it until the end. You've been the best, I've been Definition, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.